Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti. We are currently studying the mysticism of Ramayana. Commentary is by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandji Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. We are currently studying Aranya Kand. Aranya means forest. So, yesterday we had discussed Sita's kidnapping, and today we are going to delve into the mystical meaning of that. So, in reading the Ramayana, one again and again sees Rama apparently afflicted by grief over the loss or separation from a loved one. Why should this be so, they ask, if Rama was really an incarnation of Brahman? This was the same question that entered the mind of Sati in the story presented in Balakanda when she and Shiva observed Rama wandering through the forest asking every tree and flower for information about Sita's whereabouts. From the point of view of the ancient legend retold in Balakanda, Rama was carrying out the curse that he, as Lord Vishnu, had received from sage Narada when he had given that sage a monkey face to teach him a lesson. At that time, Narada had cursed Vishnu to one day become a human being and experience terrible grief from the loss of his beloved Lakshmi. Apart from this literary element, sages Tulsidas ji and Valmiki ji both make it perfectly clear that Rama is at all times merely playing the role of a grieving or rejoicing personality, while internally he is the divine self, ever detached and unaffected by all circumstances that unfold in his life. Similarly, although every human being experiences intense suffering in life, deep within one's heart, nothing has really happened. There in the cave of the heart, Rama or the self is ever smiling blissfully. The task, therefore, before every aspirant is to realize that self within and break the chain of pain that burdens the soul. In playing the role, Rama shows both his grief as well as his transcendence of grief. He reacts to the death of his father and the kidnapping of Sita, although at every moment he recognizes that these events are part of his own divine plan. In so doing, Rama sheds light on the behavior and consciousness of an enlightened sage living in the relative world. All human beings have bundles of impressions in the unconscious that cause agitation in human relationships. Those who are spiritually advanced have these impressions too and feel agitation when there is gain and loss. However, one who is advanced can see that agitation in an objective manner and not become completely involved in it. In other words, they see it as a magic, illusion, divine play, and they know that it will pass. Sages are not hard hearted and rock like in their emotions, but they possess a transcendent vision that promotes intense vairagya or dispassion. Sages possess and react compassionately to human sentiments and values, and by doing so, are able to communicate with other human beings. If they were not sensitive to these values, they would not be able to reach out to others and help them to overcome their fears and anxieties and attain enlightenment. So let's move to the next episode, the demon Kabandha. After the dying Jatayu gave them the details of Sita's abduction, Rama and Lakshmana continued with their search. Then they encountered a strange-looking demon named Kabandha, who had his mouth in his stomach. Of course, the demon wanted to eat them up, but Rama swiftly destroyed him. At the time of Kabandha's death, a heavenly spirit emerged from him and explained that he had really been a heavenly Gandharva who, because of bad deeds, had been cursed by sage Durvasa to dwell in a demoniac embodiment. This episode points to a stage in spiritual movement when Kundalini has opened a channel through the Manipur chakra at the navel center. Kundalini is that mystical energy center within us, and it is supported by various chakras. Kundalini means serpent power. So that allows one to enjoy a higher type of sadhana. As long as Kundalini or serpent power is operating below the Manipura chakra. Manipura chakra, below those are Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura. One is controlled by Karma Granthi. Karma means action. So while most people are within these three chakras, in the Karma Granthi, and dominated by gross impurities or Mala, which is symbolized by Kabandha. The destruction of Kabandha means that Kundalini now moves beyond Manipura chakra towards the heart center, which is called Anahata chakra, and it is a deeper spiritual movement. Now we'll move on to a beautiful story of Shabri. As Rama and Lakshmana continued through the forest, they came to the ashram of Shabri. Shabri was a very elderly lady who had been born as the daughter of a wild tribesman. When she was a young girl, she was about to be given in marriage. Her parents collected a large number of animals to slaughter for the wedding festivity. When Shabri realized the fate of those animals, her mind became filled with dispassion, and she left her home and entered into a forest abounding with the ashram of sages. She could not bear the thought of all those animals being butchered for sense pleasure and the festivity of her wedding. So that's when Vairagya or dispassion hit her. Unable to reach out openly to the sages because she belonged to a lower class of a forest tribe, Shabri stealthily and secretly started serving the sages and their disciples. Whenever they were away from the ashram, she would enter their huts, clean up, bring them fresh water, and perform other acts of selfless service. When they returned to the ashram, they would be surprised to see everything in such an excellent condition and wondered who had been working there. One day, one of the male disciples kept close watch and discovered Shabri. They brought her to their guru, complaining about a woman entering their premises because those were orthodox days. However, the guru was sensitive and he recognized that Shabri was a very sincere aspirant. He initiated her into Rama mantra and told her that one day she would be able to see Rama with her very own eyes. As time passed, the Guru died and all the disciples dispersed. But Shabri stayed on, continuing her japa and prayers and following a special daily ritual in the forest. Each day, she would go into the forest with the hope that was the special day when Rama would arrive at the ashram. With that in mind, she would sweep the paths, pluck what she had thought were the ripest and sweetest bare fruits. Then, like a mother tasting everything before she gives to her beloved child, Shabri would taste each fruit to make sure that only the best were going to be offered to Rama. So this is the purest of feelings, although externally it seems like a very different act that the food is no longer pure, but her heart with which she did it was so pure. As the result of this loving effort, each fruit selected for her basket bore the mark of her teeth as a devotional stamp of approval. A great many years passed, and Shabri continued this ritual every day with great patience and love. Then finally, Rama came before to her door, and he and Lakshmana were searching for information about Sita. Overjoyed to see them, Shabri offered them her fruits, and Rama ate them with great delight. Imagine all her life. She had become quite old when Rama actually came in physical form to her. According to the legend, when Rama returned to Ayodhya after the 14 years of exile were over, he never stopped praising the prasad. Prasad is sanctified food offered by Shabri, saying that it was the most delicious thing he had ever eaten. Lakshmana, however, felt hesitant about eating food that had been tasted by someone else. As a result, he threw those fruits away by shooting them into the Himalayas with his arrows. Later, those very fruits grow into medicinal herbs, and when Lakshmana lay wounded and unconscious in battle, Hanuman was sent to find those herbs, since they were the only thing that could bring Lakshmana back to life. So this was the power of bhakti, and we will continue this satsang tomorrow. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.